Silence your mind. Win everything. The loudest war you will ever fight is not out there. It's not in your workplace. It's not in your relationships. It's not in your finances. It's in the 6 inches between your ears. And most people are losing that war every single day, not because they're weak, not because they're broken, but because nobody ever taught them how to fight it. Today, that changes. What if I told you that the single most powerful thing you could do to transform your life requires no money, no equipment, no special talent, and no perfect circumstances? What if the weapon that unlocks everything, discipline, clarity, confidence, success, peace, has been sitting inside you this entire time, buried under noise you never chose to carry? That weapon is a silent mind. And today we are going to talk about what it truly means to silence your mind, not suppress it, not escape it, but master it. Completely. Stay with me for this one. I promise you, something in this video is going to land differently than anything you've heard before. Welcome back to this channel. If you're new here, you found this place for a reason. We don't do surface-level content. We go deep. We go honest. We talk about the things that actually change people from the inside out. If that's what you're looking for, hit subscribe right now. I put out content designed for people who are serious about their inner life, and I don't want you to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. Part 1: The War Inside. Close your eyes for a moment, and just listen to what's happening in your head right now. Go ahead. Actually do it. What's in there? For most people, it sounds something like this. Did I say the wrong thing yesterday? I need to respond to that message. What if this doesn't work out? I should be further along by now. What are they thinking about me? I'm behind. I'm failing. I don't have enough time. And it never stops. From the moment you open your eyes in the morning to the moment you finally collapse into sleep at night, the mind is running. Narrating. Judging. Predicting. Worrying. Replaying. Projecting. It is the most exhausting marathon in human experience, and we run it every single day without ever acknowledging that it's happening. The ancient Stoics had a name for this condition. They called it being a slave to your own thoughts. And the philosopher Epictetus, a man who was literally enslaved by another human being, looked at the noise inside most people's heads and said, "That is a worse prison than any chains." Because chains on your body still leave your mind free. But a mind enslaved to its own noise? That person is trapped everywhere they go. Part 2: Why the Modern World Wants You Loud. Here is something they don't teach you in school, and something the modern economy absolutely does not want you to know. A quiet mind is a free mind. And a free mind is a mind that cannot be easily controlled. Think about the entire architecture of the digital world you live in. Every platform, every notification, every headline, every algorithm, it is all engineered with extraordinary precision to keep your mind loud. Not because the people who built these systems are evil, but because a loud, reactive, distracted mind is a consuming mind. And consuming minds are profitable minds. You are the product. Your attention is the currency. And the noisier your inner world, the more of that currency you spend without ever realizing it. Marcus Aurelius wrote something in his private journals. Remember, these were never meant to be published. He wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." He was the most powerful man in the known world. He had every luxury, every distraction, every comfort available to him. And he still understood that the only real sanctuary, the only place that was truly his, was the silence inside. He was describing something you also have access to. Right now. Today. But you have to choose it. And choosing it in a world designed to steal it from you is an act of radical rebellion. Part 3: What a silent mind actually is. Let me clear up a massive misunderstanding before we go any further. Silencing your mind does not mean having no thoughts. It does not mean becoming emotionless. It does not mean detaching from life, from people, from joy, from pain. A silent mind is not an empty mind. A silent mind is a governed mind. Think of it this way. Imagine two generals preparing for the same battle. The first general has a room full of advisors all shouting at once. Conflicting reports. Panic. Noise. He can't think. He reacts to whatever is loudest in the moment. He gets pulled in every direction and calls it strategy. The second general has the same information, the same challenges, the same stakes. But his room is quiet. Not because there's nothing happening, everything is happening, but because he has trained himself to hear only what matters. He sees clearly. He moves with intention. He decides instead of reacting. Which general wins? That is the difference between a loud mind and a silent one. Silence is not the absence of thought. It's the absence of unnecessary thought. It's the ability to let the noise pass without grabbing onto it. To observe what's happening in your head without becoming what's happening in your head. The Stoics called this the observer self. The witness. The part of you that watches the thoughts without being dragged by them. That is what we are developing today. Part 4. The science underneath the philosophy. Now let me give you something the ancient Stoics didn't have. The modern science that confirms what they already knew. Your brain has what researchers call a default mode network. It's the system that activates when you're not focused on a specific task. It's responsible for mind-wandering, self-referential thinking, rumination, and what scientists call spontaneous thought. In other words, it's the noise machine. Studies have shown that people spend nearly half their waking hours thinking about something other than what they're actually doing. And here's the part that should stop you cold: that mind-wandering is consistently associated with lower happiness. Not sometimes. Consistently. The researchers didn't find that daydreaming about pleasant things made people happy. The act of being pulled away from the present moment, regardless of where the mind went, correlated with unhappiness. Your mind being loud is literally costing you your well-being. And the studies on contemplative practice, whether it's meditation, focused breathing, deliberate stillness, show measurable changes in the brain. The prefrontal cortex, which governs rational decision-making and emotional regulation, actually grows with practice. The amygdala, which governs fear and reactivity, quiets down. A silent mind is not a mystical concept. It is a neurological reality that you can build, the same way you build a muscle, through consistent, intentional practice. Part 5. The voices that are not yours. Before we talk about how to silence the mind, we need to talk about something harder. Not all the noise in your head belongs to you. Some of it does. Your instincts. Your genuine desires. Your authentic reactions to real experiences. That voice, that quiet voice underneath all the noise, that one is yours. But a lot of what fills your head was placed there by other people. The critical voice that sounds like a parent. The anxious loop that sounds like a teacher who told you that you weren't smart enough. The shame spiral that sounds like a partner who made you feel like too much. The low-grade sense of not being enough. Where did that come from? Did you decide that? Or was it handed to you before you were old enough to question it? Epictetus taught that one of the first acts of freedom is distinguishing between what is yours and what has been imposed on you. He called it the practice of assent, consciously deciding which impressions you will agree with and which you will release. Because here's the truth: you cannot silence a mind full of voices you've never examined. The noise doesn't go quiet because you try to push it down. It goes quiet when you turn toward it, look at it clearly, and ask, is this actually mine? Is this true? Does this serve me? Most of the loudest noise in your head will not survive that question. Part 6. The practice of stillness. Let me give you something practical now. Because philosophy without practice is just entertainment. The Stoics were not theorists. They were practitioners. Every morning, Marcus Aurelius wrote. Every morning, he examined his mind before the world could fill it up. He called it his morning preparation, anticipating the day, grounding himself in his values, centering himself before the noise could take hold. You can do this. Here's how. The morning silence practice. Before you pick up your phone, before you speak to anyone, before you consume any content, give yourself 10 minutes of deliberate quiet. Not meditation if that word puts you off. Just stillness. Sit. Breathe. Let whatever thoughts arise come and go without chasing them. You're not trying to think of nothing. You're practicing watching thoughts without becoming them. Over time, not immediately, but over time, that 10 minutes becomes a kind of anchor. It sets the tone of your inner world before the outside world gets a chance to set it for you. The pause practice. Throughout your day, every time you feel a reactive emotion rising, irritation, anxiety, the urge to check your phone, the need for validation, pause for exactly one breath before you do anything. One breath. That's it. You're not suppressing the emotion. You're inserting a tiny gap between stimulus and response. And in that gap you are free. Viktor Frankl, a man who survived the worst horrors of the 20th century, said that between stimulus and response there is a space. And in that space is your power. The pause practice is how you build that space, one breath at a time. The end of day audit. Every evening, take 5 minutes and ask yourself 3 questions. Where did I let noise control me today? Where did I respond from clarity? What can I release before I sleep? Not as self-criticism. As a scientist examining data. You're learning the patterns of your own mind. Because you cannot change what you cannot see. Part 7. Silence as Strategy. Now I want to talk about something that most people completely miss when they think about mental stillness. Silence is not passive. Silence is not retreat. Silence is the sharpest strategic edge you can carry. Think about the greatest leaders, the greatest athletes, the greatest creators throughout history. What do they have in common? They are not reactive. They do not let other people's chaos become their chaos. They move at their own pace. They speak when they have something to say. They act from a place of considered intention rather than impulsive reaction. That is not talent. That is training. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoic philosophy, was asked once why he listened so much and spoke so little. He said, "I have 2 ears and 1 mouth." The proportion seems intentional. When you are silent, truly silent, you hear things others miss. You see the pattern underneath the noise. You notice what people are actually asking for beneath what they're saying. You observe the dynamics of a room without being swept up in them. And when you do speak, when you do act, it carries a weight that reactive, noise-driven behavior never has. Silence is not the absence of power. Silence is where power lives. Part 8. When the mind refuses to quiet. I want to speak to something real now. Because some of you listening are going through something that isn't just daily noise. You're carrying grief. You're in the middle of something that has genuinely shaken you. You're living with anxiety that isn't philosophical, it's physical, it's daily, it's real. And everything I've said tonight might feel slightly hollow from where you're standing. I want to acknowledge that. Silencing your mind when you're in genuine pain is not about suppression. It is not about forcing peace over suffering. The Stoic practice of stillness was never about pretending the storm isn't happening. Marcus Aurelius faced plague, war, betrayal, grief, the deaths of children. He did not meditate his pain away. He sat with it. He examined it. He felt it fully. And then, slowly, imperfectly, he chose what to do with it. That is available to you too. Not as a technique for numbing yourself. As a practice for being present with what is real without being destroyed by it. The mind doesn't need to be silent because life is easy. The mind needs to be cultivated into silence precisely because life is not. Part 9. What you win when you win the inner war. Let me paint a picture of what life actually looks like when you've done this work. Not perfection. That doesn't exist. But a different quality of being. You wake up and the first thought is not dread. It's readiness. You walk into a room and you're not performing. You're present. Someone tries to provoke you, in conversation, on the internet, at work, and you feel the reaction arise and then, almost automatically, you let it pass. You respond from your values, not your wounds. You sit with discomfort without running from it. You sit with pleasure without grasping for more. You make decisions without weeks of paralysis because the noise has cleared enough that you can actually hear what you want. You create things, ideas, art, work, relationships, from a place that is genuinely yours, not filtered through the anxiety of what everyone else will think. You sleep. That sounds simple. But if you've spent years with a loud mind, you know that real, deep, untroubled sleep feels like a gift. That is what you win. Not a trophy. Not a title. Your own life. Actually experienced, from the inside, without the wall of noise between you and it. Part 10. The choice in front of you right now. Every person who has ever taken control of their inner world made one fundamental decision. They decided that the quality of their consciousness mattered. Not just their output. Not just their productivity. Not just their results. The actual texture of their inner experience. What it feels like to be them, on an ordinary Tuesday, doing nothing remarkable. They decided that deserved attention. That deserved cultivation. And from that decision, everything else followed. You are here. You made it to the end of this. That tells me something about you. You're not just looking for entertainment. You're looking for something real. I want to challenge you to make that decision right now. Not a dramatic overhaul. Not a perfect plan. Just a decision that your inner world is worth tending to. Starting tomorrow morning. 10 minutes. Before the phone. Before the noise. Just you and the silence you're learning to build. If this video moved something in you, if something landed, if something shifted, even slightly, I want to hear from you in the comments. Tell me, what is the loudest noise in your mind right now? What thought do you wish you could put down? Write it. Let it out. You might be surprised what happens when you name it. And if you want more of this, weekly long-form content on stoicism, mental mastery, and the real work of becoming someone who is genuinely free, subscribe to this channel. That is exactly what we do here. Every single week. This is not a channel for passive watching. This is a channel for people who are actively building something inside themselves. Who are tired of the noise and ready for something different. You found this video for a reason. Don't leave without subscribing. Because the next conversation we have might be the one that changes everything. I'll see you there.